The wind howled like a starving beast across the barren desert, whipping dust and fine grit against Ethan Graves' exposed skin. His breathing was shallow, each inhale like sucking on hot iron. His oxygen gauge flashed red, dangerously low. His drop pod had crashed hours ago, a violent spiral from orbit that left his ship in twisted ruins and his comms fried. No way to call for help. No way to leave. He adjusted his cracked visor and trudged forward, boots sinking into the shifting dunes of this alien world. Itharos, according to the NAV charts, a harsh, arid planet where the nights could freeze the blood in your veins and the days could burn it away. Ethan had survived worse. But not alone. A shape flickered in the distance, a silhouette against the twilight, standing atop a jagged rock outcrop. Not human. The figure was tall and impossibly poised, adorned in dark, flowing fabrics that shimmered with an iridescent glow. A native. His relief was short-lived. As Ethan stumbled closer, he recognized the regal, piercing gaze of the alien woman now staring at him like he was an uninvited storm. She was exquisite, tall and lean, her onyx-black skin threaded with faint gold markings that pulsed in time with her breath. Her elongated ears curved gracefully back, framing sharp, aristocratic features and full lips pressed into a disapproving line. A high collar accentuated the proud tilt of her chin, and the faint glow from her intricate robes bathed her in an almost ethereal light. But it was her eyes that pinned him in place, deep violet, burning with something between disdain and calculation. He opened his mouth, but his knees buckled before words could come. His vision swam, and the last thing he saw before the darkness took him was the alien woman stepping forward, her cloak billowing like a shadow against the sand. Ethan woke to warmth. Not the brutal heat of the desert sun, but something softer, closer, pressing against him. His breath hitched. His head rested against a firm yet strangely delicate shoulder, and slender arms encircled him, cradling him as if he were something fragile. He could feel the rhythmic rise and fall of a chest against his own, hear the steady pulse of a heart not quite human. His first instinct was to pull away, but a low, warning growl stopped him cold. "Do not move, human!" a voice commanded. Silken yet edged with irritation, the sound sent a shiver down his spine. He blinked against the dim light, his blurred vision focusing on the woman from earlier. She was so close. Her violet eyes burned into his, unreadable yet fiercely intent. "What?" His throat was dry, his voice cracked. "What the hell is happening? You are weak. Cold. My kind absorbs and redistributes heat. You would have perished otherwise." Ethan swallowed hard. He was pressed flush against her, their bodies entwined. Her scent was intoxicating, something like wild spice and lightning-charged air. "Could have just given me a blanket," he muttered. Her brow arched. "A blanket would not have saved your life." Something flashed across her face, irritation, maybe something deeper. But then she stiffened, and a sudden pulse of golden light streaked across her exposed skin. Ethan felt her entire body lock up. She jerked away violently, eyes wide in horror. "By the stars!" Her voice was barely a whisper, but the shock in it sent ice through his veins. She looked down at her bare hands, at her skin still glowing where it had touched his. Ethan forced himself upright despite the dizziness. "Okay, seriously. What is happening?" She stared at him, expression shifting from shock to fury. "You touched me." He blinked. "You were literally wrapped around me. You touched my bare skin." Ethan opened his mouth, closed it, then exhaled sharply. "Right. And that's a problem because—" She rose to her full height, towering over him, her cloak swirling like a gathering storm. "Because," she seethed, lifting her arm to reveal a golden mark pulsing against her skin, "you have just invoked an irrevocable bond." His stomach dropped. "I'm gonna need you to explain that." She let out a slow, measured breath, as if she were restraining the urge to throttle him. "In my culture," she said, each word deliberate, "physical contact without consent activates an imprint, a binding marker that signifies an unbreakable connection." Ethan stared at her. Then laughed. She did not. "You're serious?" he realized, amusement dying on his lips. Her gaze darkened. Deadly so. So what does this mean exactly? It means, she said, voice rigid with control, that you are now my mate. Silence. Then, finally, you've got to be shitting me. Her nostrils flared. I assure you I am not. Ethan ran a hand down his face. Okay. Let's just take a step back. There has to be some kind of reversal, right? A ritual? A lawyer? She crossed her arms, expression turning colder. There is no reversal. So you're telling me that because I accidentally touched you, I'm just, what? Stuck in an intergalactic shotgun wedding? Her lips thinned. You mock what you do not understand, human. The Valari do not take bonds lightly. This is law. This is sacred. And now you are bound to me. Ethan exhaled slowly, rubbing his temples. His day had gone from crash landing on an alien planet to being unwillingly engaged to a furious extraterrestrial warrior woman. Look, I don't mean to disrespect your culture, he said carefully. But I didn't ask for this. You didn't ask for this. Can't we just ignore it? She took a step forward, and for the first time, there was something other than anger in her eyes. Something bordering on uncertainty. If we reject the bond, she said softly, we both face exile. I will lose my standing. My people. My name. Ethan's stomach twisted. Damn it. For the first time, he saw it, beneath her fierce exterior, a woman trapped by rules she had no choice in. I didn't mean to ruin your life, he muttered. You didn't, she said after a long pause. But you are in it now. And I will not allow weakness in my mate. He sighed, looking up at the endless alien sky. So what happens next? A small, knowing smile touched her lips. You prove yourself worthy. And with that, she turned, her cloak snapping in the wind, leaving Ethan with the sinking realization that his problems had only just begun. The twin moons of Itharos cast a ghostly glow over the alien city, their pale light reflecting off the spires of obsidian stone that jutted into the sky like the bones of some ancient titan. Ethan walked through the bustling corridors of Itharos' inner sanctum, his every step drawing stares, whispers, and veiled glares from the locals. He was the outsider. The intruder. The unworthy. His so-called mate, Zaira, strode beside him with the unshaken confidence of someone born into authority. Her chin remained high, her violet eyes fixed forward, refusing to acknowledge the judgment of her people. Ethan, on the other hand, was far less composed. This is insane, he muttered under his breath, keeping his voice low. You're really telling me I have to prove I'm worthy of you? Zaira didn't break stride. Would you rather exile? Because that is your only alternative. Ethan let out a slow, measured breath. You know, on Earth, relationships usually involve things like mutual interest, personal choice, dating even? She gave him a sidelong glance, her expression unreadable. And yet here you are. Damn it. She wasn't wrong. They entered what appeared to be a massive ceremonial hall, carved into the heart of a towering black citadel. Tall, glowing banners inscribed with Valari glyphs hung from the high ceilings, their shifting light casting eerie patterns across the polished floor. At the far end, a raised platform loomed, where a circle of elders sat draped in flowing indigo robes. A murmur passed through the gathered Valari. Ethan squared his shoulders, refusing to shrink under the scrutiny. If they wanted to test him, fine. He'd played worse hands. One of the elders, a woman with silver-threaded hair and piercing gold eyes, rose. You stand before the Council of Itharos, she announced, her voice smooth yet edged with steel. By our laws, a bond has been formed. And by our laws, it must be honored. Ethan clenched his jaw. This was really happening. The elder turned her gaze on Zaira. Do you accept this male as your bonded mate? A tense silence followed. Zaira's face remained neutral, but something flickered behind her eyes. Finally, she gave a slow, deliberate nod. I do. Ethan barely contained his shock. That sounded almost reluctant. The elder's attention shifted to him. Human. Do you submit yourself to the trials to prove your worth? Ethan exhaled sharply. Do I have a choice? The elder's expression didn't change. No. Figures. A deep, rumbling voice broke the silence. Then let the trials begin. Ethan turned toward the source and felt his stomach drop. A towering Valari male stepped forward, his frame massive even by their standards. His skin was the color of molten bronze, his eyes sharp as razors, and his presence radiated barely restrained aggression. Valor. Zyra's former betrothed. Shit. I will not allow this human to claim what is mine. Valor growled, his gaze locked onto Ethan with something far beyond contempt. Zyra stiffened beside him. I am not yours, Valor. Valor's lips curled. Not yet. Ethan sighed, rubbing a hand down his face. All right. Let's get this over with. Trial 1, Endurance. Ethan stood at the edge of a massive gravity chamber, sweat already forming at his temples. The challenge? Survive 3 minutes under Tharo's maximum artificial gravity. Easy, right? Wrong. The moment the chamber activated, Ethan felt like an entire planet had dropped onto his back. His knees buckled. His vision blurred. Every breath felt like dragging sandpaper through his lungs. The Valari watched in eerie silence as he fought to remain standing. 30 seconds. His muscles screamed, his bones strained under the pressure. 1 minute. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. His arms trembled. He caught sight of Zyra, watching him from the platform above. For the first time, she didn't look indifferent. Her jaw was clenched, her fingers curled into fists at her sides. Ethan grit his teeth. Hell if he was going to fall now. He pushed against the crushing weight, forcing himself to stand. The final seconds dragged on like an eternity. Then, the pressure lifted. Ethan gasped, collapsing to one knee. His entire body shook, but he hadn't fallen. The chamber doors opened. Zyra met his gaze, her expression unreadable. Valor scowled. Ethan grinned through the pain. 1 down. Trial 2, The Hunt. Ethan crouched in the jagged cliffs of the Valari hunting grounds, a crude spear clutched in his hands. His target? The Varoth beast. A 6-legged predator with obsidian scales and eyes like burning coals. Great. He adjusted his stance, scanning the rocky terrain. The creature was near. He could feel it. Then, a rush of movement. The Varoth lunged from the shadows, razor-sharp fangs flashing in the moonlight. Ethan rolled to the side, barely avoiding the snap of its jaws. He didn't hesitate. He pivoted, using the beast's momentum against it, driving his spear into its exposed flank. The creature shrieked, staggering back. But it wasn't dead. Not yet. It lunged again, and Ethan did the only thing he could. He dropped the spear, and drove his fist into its skull. A sickening crack echoed through the cliffs. The Varoth twitched, then fell still. Silence. Ethan panted, blood dripping from his knuckles. Then, slowly, he turned. Zyra stood on the ridge above, her violet eyes locked onto his. There was something different in her expression this time. Not disdain. Not skepticism. Something far more dangerous. Interest. Trial 3, The Bonding. Ethan stood before the Valari elders, Zyra at his side. You have survived the trials, the elder announced. Now, the final step remains. The bonding ritual. Ethan swallowed. And that involves... Zyra finally looked at him, her gaze intense. A neural connection. A joining of thoughts, emotions. A permanent imprint. Ethan went still. That sounds invasive. Zyra's expression softened, just slightly. You are not required to go through with it, she admitted. Not unless you truly wish to. Something in his chest tightened. For the first time, she was giving him a choice. And suddenly, Ethan wasn't sure what his answer would be. The ceremonial chamber hummed with an almost tangible energy. Ethan stood at its center, a lone human among towering alien figures, his pulse hammering against his ribs. Before him, Zyra remained poised, her violet eyes dark and searching. The tension between them had shifted, no longer cold resistance, but something far more dangerous. Curiosity. Uncertainty. Desire. The final trial, the bonding ritual, loomed before them. A neural link. A permanent imprint. A merging of thoughts, emotions, and something even deeper. The Valari elders watched in solemn silence. No escape. No turning back. Ethan exhaled slowly. So, he murmured, what exactly happens if we go through with this? Zyra hesitated, a rare crack in her otherwise unshakable composure. Our minds will touch, she said. Memories. Instincts. Desires. It is irreversible. His throat tightened. And if we don't? She glanced at the elders, then back at him. Then I am disgraced. You are cast out. Alone. Ethan swallowed hard. He had survived the trials, bested their challenges. But this was something different. This wasn't just a test. This was surrender. He met her gaze. You don't want this either. A flicker of something in her expression. Guilt? Frustration? I do not know what I want, she admitted, voice low. Something inside him twisted. She had never been given a choice before. And yet here she was, standing before him, waiting. A choice. A decision. Ethan squared his shoulders. Then let's find out. The bonding. The chamber dimmed. A low, resonant hum filled the space as the elders activated the ancient device, a floating obsidian ring, etched with glowing runes, rotating slowly in the air. Zyra stepped forward, standing inches from Ethan. The heat between them was palpable, electric. She reached for him, her fingers brushing lightly against his temples. The moment their skin connected, the world shifted. A sudden surge of sensation exploded through Ethan's mind, heat, colors, emotions not his own. Memories. Zyra as a child, standing in the rain, watching her father's ship leave. Zyra in battle, blade in hand, blood staining her golden skin. Zyra, alone, staring at her reflection, fingers grazing the untouched bond mark on her wrist. A sharp gasp escaped her lips. Ethan felt her in his head, felt her grasping onto pieces of him. His own past unraveled between them. Ethan, young, staring up at the stars, longing for something beyond Earth. Ethan, stranded after his first mission, went south, watching his crewmates die. Ethan, pulling himself from wreckage, surviving, always surviving. Pain. Loss. Loneliness. Then, something else. A pull. A thread weaving between them, tightening, burning into existence. Ethan staggered, chest heaving. He wasn't just seeing her. He was feeling her. Her fear. Her need. And something undeniable. She gasped softly. Her fingers clenched against his skin. Then silence. The glow of the bonding ring dimmed. The connection snapped back into place like a taut wire settling into its groove. Ethan shuddered. His breath came in sharp, uneven pulls. Zyra's gaze was locked onto his, wide shaken. The elder's voice broke the stillness. The bond is formed. It was done. They were bound. But neither of them spoke. Because what they had just felt was far more dangerous than either had expected. The aftermath. The corridors of Itharos were eerily silent. The ritual had ended, but the storm between them had only begun. Ethan followed Zyra as she led him through the winding pathways of the citadel. The air was thick with unspoken words, tension coiled so tight he swore he could hear it buzzing. Finally, she stopped in front of a heavy, ornate door. Her chambers. She turned abruptly, her violet eyes burning into him. What did you see? She demanded. Ethan exhaled, rubbing his temples. A lot. She stepped closer, the sharp scent of her skin, something like wild spice and midnight air, sending a ripple of heat down his spine. You were a child, he said quietly. You watched someone leave. Her breath hitched. She hadn't expected him to say that. She had expected him to mock her. to challenge her. But instead, he had reached for the wound she kept buried. Zyra lifted her chin. "And I saw you," she countered. "You have never belonged anywhere." His stomach clenched. She wasn't wrong. The silence stretched between them, thick, heavy. Then, finally, "What do we do now?" Ethan asked. Zyra hesitated. Then, in a voice softer than he had ever heard, she whispered, "I do not know." But she didn't step away. And neither did he. The challenge. The moment shattered as a loud voice rang through the corridors. "I challenge this bond." Ethan spun around just in time to see Valor striding forward, his golden gaze seething with rage. Zyra's entire frame tensed. "This farce has gone on long enough." Valor spat. "He is unworthy." Ethan rolled his shoulders. "You're really gonna make me fight you, huh?" Valor sneered. "Fight? No, human. I will break you." Zyra stepped between them. "This is done. He has passed the trials. The bond is sealed." Valor's lip curled. "Then he will defend it. Or die." Ethan clenched his fists, blood thrumming hot in his veins. Zyra turned to him, eyes shadowed with something unreadable. "You do not have to do this." He met her gaze. And he realized she was afraid. Not for herself. For him. Ethan took a slow breath. Then he smirked. "I think I do." Zyra's fingers brushed his arm, brief, hesitant. Then she stepped aside. Valor's expression was pure satisfaction. "Tomorrow," he said. "At dawn." Then he turned, disappearing into the night. Ethan exhaled slowly. He turned to Zyra. "So, any chance you have a crash course in alien combat techniques?" Her lips twitched. Almost a smile. "Sleep well, human," she murmured. "You will need it." Ethan laughed, even as his pulse pounded. Because tomorrow, he was either proving himself, or dying trying. The first rays of dawn cut across the horizon, washing Itharo's great Colosseum in hues of gold and violet. The arena, a vast stone circle carved into the heart of the citadel, pulsed with a restless energy. Ethan stood at its center, shirtless, the cool morning air sharp against his skin. Around him, the Valari elite had gathered, their luminous eyes fixed upon the human who dared claim one of their own. At the far end of the arena, Valor stood motionless, his massive frame a monument of lethal intent. The towering warrior exuded raw, coiled aggression, his molten bronze skin gleaming under the rising sun. His eyes burned with a singular promise: destruction. From the elevated platform, Zyra watched. She was stone-faced, unreadable. But Ethan could feel her gaze, even without looking. The bond between them still hummed, an undeniable thread woven between their souls. Ethan rolled his shoulders, exhaling slowly. No weapons. No armor. Just two bodies, two wills, and one undeniable truth. He had no choice but to win. The first strike. The signal was given. Valor moved like a shadow ripping through light, closing the distance in a heartbeat. His first strike came with brutal efficiency, a sharp, downward punch meant to shatter bones. Ethan barely dodged, the air whistling as Valor's fist slammed into the ground with crater-like force. The impact sent a shockwave through the stone, dust pluming in violent bursts. Ethan didn't have time to process the raw power behind that strike. Valor was already pivoting, his foot lashing out like a battering ram aimed at Ethan's ribs. Ethan reacted on instinct, twisting midair. The kick grazed his side, the sheer force knocking the wind from his lungs as he tumbled across the ground. Pain flared. He gritted his teeth, pushing himself up. Valor smirked. "Is this the best humanity has to offer?" Ethan coughed, shaking dust from his hair. "You hit like a malfunctioning servo droid." Valor's smirk faded. He lunged again. The turning point. This time, Ethan was ready. He wasn't stronger than Valor. But he was faster. Smarter. Ethan sidestepped the next punch, grabbing Valor's wrist and twisting sharply. The alien warrior snarled, but Ethan was already moving, redirecting the brute's own momentum against him. Valor stumbled forward, momentarily off balance. Ethan drove his elbow into the warrior's ribs, the impact reverberating up his arm. The crowd gasped. Valor whirled, rage distorting his features. He struck out again, but Ethan dodged, not wildly, but precisely. Valor fought like a battering ram. Ethan fought like a scalpel. The breaking point. Ethan's lungs burned. His muscles screamed. But he could see it now, the cracks in Valor's movements. He was predictable. Slower than before. Ethan ducked another punch and, without hesitation, drove his fist directly into Valor's throat. The warrior choked, stumbling back. Ethan followed with a brutal kick to the knee, sending him crashing to one side. For the first time, Valor's eyes flashed with something other than fury. Shock. And Ethan knew. He could win this. The final blow. Valor roared and lunged one last time. Ethan met him head-on. He feinted left, Valor fell for it. And that was his mistake. Ethan drove his fist forward, full force, into Valor's sternum. The warrior staggered back. Silence fell over the Colosseum. Valor swayed. Then collapsed onto one knee. Ethan stepped forward, panting. His knuckles throbbed, his skin slick with sweat and blood. The elder's voice cut through the stunned quiet. The challenge has been met. The finality of the words sank in. Ethan had won. The aftermath. Valor was dragged from the arena, his face twisted in silent fury. The crowd parted like water as Ethan stepped forward. And then Zyra was there. She met him halfway, her expression still unreadable. But her eyes, they burned with something he couldn't quite name. You did not have to fight, she murmured. Ethan wiped blood from his split lip. Yeah, well, I think I had to. A beat of silence. Then, for the first time since they had met, Zyra reached for him. Not out of duty. Not because of the bond. But because she wanted to. Her fingers ghosted over his bruised jawline, light as a whisper. Ethan barely breathed. There is no undoing this now, she said softly. He held her gaze. I know. Another pause. Then, a small, rare smile tugged at her lips. Then you are mine, she whispered. And this time, Ethan didn't argue. Final resolution. The night was quiet. The city lights shimmered beyond the balcony of Zyra's chambers, casting a soft glow over their entwined forms. Ethan lay back, staring up at the alien sky, feeling the warmth of her body pressed lightly against his. The bond between them hummed, not forced, not unwanted. But chosen. Finally. Zyra's voice was barely audible. You belong here now. Ethan exhaled, his fingers brushing over the golden mark on her skin, the mark that now pulsed in sync with his heartbeat. Yeah, he murmured. I guess I do. And for the first time in his life, he didn't want to be anywhere else.